Hello, hello. Welcome to Candy Publishing's free workshop. So, if you know anyone who may be thinking about writing a book, who would like to be an author for the upcoming year 2021, please share, tag them, invite them to join us for this free workshop. And we do have a special guest tonight, a friend and author who I'll be bringing on, Shatara Clark, who has written a couple of books and self-published. Tonight, I just want to offer the opportunity for those of you who may be interested in writing a book or who have been talking about writing a book for years or months to possibly inspire you or light that fire to finally write your book. People come up, let me say, we come up with so many excuses about why we don't want to write a book. We can't write, don't have the time to write, don't know what to write, whatever it may be, whatever your excuse may be. If there is a book, actually, there is a book inside you, and you need to get the words out of your head and on paper. And we are going to help you with that tonight. Not going to keep you long. Can't give a workshop in 30 minutes, can't give a workshop in an hour to tell you everything that you need to know about writing and publishing a book. But hopefully tonight you'll have a desire to go forth with your dream, your vision of whatever your book is. There are a few things that authors, I don't even know if I introduced myself. My name is Lavender Shedrick Williams. I'm the owner of Candy Publishing. I've written about 4 or 5 books, and I'm also a ghostwriter. I help others write their books. I didn't set out to be a publisher. It was basically writing my own books, and then others began to ask me for help. So I thought, hey, instead of giving the information for free, it could be a job. It could be a side hustle, and it actually turned into a business, thus Candy Publishing. And it's something that I enjoy doing, helping writers become authors. So this wasn't something that I had a business plan for. It's a love of mine to write. I love books. I made some mistakes with my first book, We Snap in Silence, that was written back in 2009. And I learned from those mistakes and kept making some more mistakes. And after about 6, 7 years, I pretty much have it down packed that I can give you some sound guidance and suggestions on not just making a good book, but a great book. And Shatara, when I bring her on, she's going to share her journey also of self-publishing. Now, Candy Publishing is going in a new direction. Instead of me taking all of your information and put it into book form, I want to encourage you to self-publish. I have some books in me still that I would like to write. And I'm trying to go in a new direction so I can write these books, get these books out of me before I die. I'm always saying, don't die with a book in you. Don't die with a book in you. And if I may, I want to share very quickly, I use that term, that phrase, don't die with a book in you, lightly, but it means a lot. We put things off, we procrastinate, and we don't always live as if today may be our last day. And there is a man from Pensacola, a new author from Pensacola, Florida, who published a book. Actually, he had a ghostwriter to write his book. Is actually a children's book, Al's 10 Fingers. And Sandra Winborn, Dr. Sandra Winborn, wrote the book for Mr. Al Martin, and the book was published in June 2020. Yes, this year, June of 2020. And unfortunately, Mr. Martin passed away a couple of nights ago. Thank goodness that his book, this is a children's book of his life story. And he has another book of him, actually his memoir, that will be coming out soon. But thank goodness that he was able to get this book published before he passed away. So we send our condolences to Al Martin's family. He's a very well-known musician in Pensacola, a legend in his own right. Okay, I'm going to bring on Shatara, and we're going to talk a little bit more about self-publishing. Hello, Shatara.
Hello,
Is it Shatara or Shatara?
it's Shatara.
Shatara,
Hmm.
okay. Shatara and I met in Atlanta
Hmm.
at a candy publishing workshop, and she is the author of a couple of books, and she decided to self-publish. One of the things that I noticed, she's going to share her journey in a few minutes. One of the things I noticed about writers, some mistakes that we make. One, we wait until the book is almost finished before we ask for help. If you're writing a book and you've never written a book, you want to get some kind of guidance for the development of your book. You don't want to just go at it in a whim and then look for a publisher. You could save yourself a lot of time and probably a lot of money if you ask a publisher or a ghostwriter or someone who's written a book before some questions so you won't make those same mistakes that we've all made with publishing our book. So don't wait until your book is finished. Seek out someone that can give you some guidance. Another mistake that we make is marketing. Authors do not realize how important it is to market your book. And rule of thumb is 9 months to a year before your book is released, that we should start marketing our book. It's like opening up a shoe store. You don't want to wait until the shoe store is open and say, hey, I got a shoe store, come on out. You want to advertise, you want to market it, you want to get people excited about it and help them to come back and want to know more about the shoe store and what kind of shoes you have. So you have to market, you have to advertise. 10% of the book is writing the book. 90% is marketing, and that's where most authors fail. And then once you get the book written, you may market it and advertise it for a few months, and then your book is dead. Nobody's hearing about it. So keep your book alive. If you've taken the time to write the book, keep your book alive and just continue. And I am the pot calling the kettle black because I don't advertise many of my books. Any of my books, I don't. I think the Other Woman magazine, Candy Publishing is the publisher of the Other Woman magazine. That's probably the only publication that I regularly advertise and market. That's the one that I enjoy the most. That's the one I love the most. But my other books, yes, I do have a website. If people say, where can I find your books? I say, you can just go to my website. But don't let your books die after you put so much time and energy into them. And also, educate yourself. Before you pay a publisher, find out what the different types of publishing is. A lot of people will just see a publisher advertise, and this is how I get most of my business. You see a publisher online or advertising, and you call them up and you say, hey, I got a book I want to publish. That is the first step. But I always say to Google self-publishing, Google publishing, educate yourself on the terminology that publishers use, because publishers prey on new writers. They know you want to get published. They can increase the price. You don't understand what's going on with the editing. You don't have any idea what an ISBN or copyright, or even if you have to publish, have to purchase your copyright. So I encourage you to educate yourself. And I'm also encouraging you to consider self-publishing. Self-publishing gives you more control. It gives you power. I like control. So that is why I chose to self-publish my books. So, Shatara, tell us, let me show your book first. Let me show your book. This is your first book, right? Sturdy by
Yes, my
30?
first paperback, yes.
Okay. Tell us why you decided to self-publish your book.
Well, for many, many years, I had written my book. I had my book written like 3 or 4 years. And I searched for publishing companies, even sent my manuscript to a publishing company to look over it and give me an estimate. And that estimate was just well out of my budget. Like we're talking
What was
about,
it?
it was about $4,000
Wow.
to publish my book, and they had a list of things that they were going to do, and they broke down each amount, how much editing would cost, how much formatting would cost, how much all of these things would cost, and then the end result was like close to $4,000. And so then I began to think about, and I had already paid them like 100 to 200 just to look, just to read it. So then I began to think about like where I was going to find the $4,000 to pay them, because I was not aware of publishing, self-publishing. I think at that time people were using Create Space, but when I tried to use Create Space, it was very difficult to use. Like it was very complicated still. So I was like, okay, well, definitely I'm gonna have somebody do this. Like this is gonna be too hard. I don't know how to do it, so I'm gonna have to pay somebody to do it. And then I actually wrote an ebook, and somehow through Google or research, because one thing about it, research, like she said, ask people, ask questions. I was asking around. No one was really like, okay, sit down and I'll help you do it. I'll guide you through it. I mean, of course, I was willing to pay, but nobody actually said that at the time. So I was just research, and that I kind of, when I would think about my book, I would get really sad because I knew I had that book sitting there in my Dropbox, and I knew I wanted the world to read it, but I just didn't know how to do it, and I would get really sad about it. But it was one of my goals, so I would research. When I would feel bad about it, I'd research some more. So some kind of way, I ran up on Kindle Direct Publishing, and it looked simple, but I wasn't sure. So I was a blogger. I had always been a blogger, and so I decided to publish this blog I wrote called The Playbook, but publish it as an ebook because I found out it wasn't long enough to be a paperback. So I played with that, and then I did the ebook. And then as soon as I finished the ebook, it was like immediately like do your paperback, but I didn't have enough pages. So then I figured it out, and I was like, I can actually do this myself. Like I did it, I played with it. Now, one thing, it's a learning process. I learned how to do covers better because someone did put me on to Fiverr, which is a company that does graphic designs and stuff. But just going through that process of doing it myself, and like when I actually had the book in my hand, the actual proof, like knowing that I was able to, with just research, literally just reading, watching YouTube, going through the process myself, I literally, like, I couldn't even believe it. Like when the proof came in the mail, I still couldn't believe it. So it was just really for me, self-publishing, it was liberating. It was being able to control the narrative, and then not trying to figure out how to come out of pocket for $4,000. Like insane. And
That's
then
a lot of money.
that is
That's a
a
lot of
whole
money.
lot of money. And then I saw people doing it. Well, I saw people publishing their books through this particular company, and I also saw people publishing their books and saying they self-published. But again, it was really hard to break into that world and figure out how they were doing it. And then even with the people who were publishing through publishing companies, I'm like, I know they had a payment plan or something, but I'm like, at the end of the day, like, how do you pour that amount of money into just one book? Hopefully you get a return on it. But that is what really led me on my journey to self-publishing, is the expensiveness of using a actual publishing company and wanting to have, like she said, that control over
Control.
publishing your book and not coming out of pocket, or just being able to just pay a printing company, really. But
Mhm.
yeah, that was my whole thing. And like she said, research.
Did you look into 48-hour printing? Because that's another one that I use, 48-hour printing. Have you ever
No,
heard of them?
no, I've never heard of 48-hour printing, but that's
It's
good to know.
48hours.com or 48hourbooks.com or something like that. And they will print your book. You have to format it and everything, but they will print your book in 48 hours. So it's a lot of resources out there
Hmm.
that people aren't aware of. But again, research, do your homework, educate yourself on the publishing world. Most people don't even know there are different types of publishers. They come to me and say, they'll call Candy Publishing. I'm writing a book. I want to publish a book. And the first thing I ask them is if they did their research. There are independent publishers. There are traditional publishers. There are companies that are self-publishers. So before you just pick up the phone and say, I want a publisher, educate yourself. But that's what Candy Publishing does in the workshops, is explain to you the different types of publishing. I try to educate you so you won't go out and spend a bunch of money like Shatara was saying, $4,000. But most publishing companies, if you Google publishing companies or I want to publish my book online, they all have these packages that you can choose from, and they'll charge you for editing. They'll charge you for book cover design. They'll charge you for printing or whatever. But most self-publishing companies, if you don't ask for editing, they will publish what you give them. And your book will be jacked up, full of mistakes, full of grammar errors. And I can't stand that. And for whatever reason, our culture, we will self-publish books and we will cut costs by not getting it edited. And that just makes your first book, because this is your brand. This is your
Yeah.
first book. And your first book is going to set the tone for future books if you plan to be a writer. So you don't want to cut costs on editing. And editing costs, you're not going to get a good editor for under $200. I'm going to say $250, depending on the type of the number of pages that you have in your book. Editors are jewels, and you don't want to get someone. A lot of people make a mistake of finding a friend to edit. That's okay. However, you want someone who can not only edit for grammar and spelling, but the flow of your book
Hmm.
to help you with content.
That's important.
Yeah. So, did you get an editor for your book?
I did, and I had, because my book is backed by scripture for each section. I had someone who was skilled, who was like a Bible scholar, to also check the scriptures. So that's important as well. But definitely that flow, like making sure that your book makes sense, that's so important, because you don't want to
Mhm.
lose your reader. Because if you lose your reader in the first book, you won't get those readers back for the second.
If
Like
you
it's
lose your first reader in the first paragraph, in the
yeah, it's
first
over.
sentence.
And I tell a lot of people, like, people will buy your book to support you, but because they didn't finish it, because they got lost, they won't go out telling people, "Oh, this is a good book, go buy it." You'll never hear that.
That's
That'll just
right.
be a lot of family and friends with your book, and that's it.
That
Like
is
that's the
it.
end of it.
That is it. And then you hear crickets after
Yeah,
you
then you gonna hear
run
that.
run down
Yeah,
your family and you exhaust them, to
yeah. There
buy
will
your
be no
book.
strangers just buying it or just saying, "Hey,
No,
how's this book?" And people saying it's a good book. They won't say it because they didn't read it. So it's kind of hard to say that if I didn't
or they
finish
don't
your
want
book.
to
Even
hurt
if
your
I am your friend.
feelings.
Yeah, even if I am your
Exactly.
friend, if I didn't finish your book, it's not much I can really say to another person. Yep.
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
want feedback. And I also say, if you all have any questions, please feel free to ask. I also let people know to share your book before you get it published with your worst critic. Let someone read your book. And I wouldn't suggest a friend, or it could be a friend, but a friend who's going to give you some honest feedback, who's going to critique your book, who's going to rip your book apart and find every little mistake. They're going to let you know if it's boring. They're going to let you know if there's any um, hindrances for it to be a page turner. You want a
Mhm.
page turner. It doesn't matter if you write a memoir, nonfiction, creative fiction, whatever it is, you want it to be a page turner. So like Shatara said, you don't want them to start reading and put the book down. That's
Mhm.
that's not only embarrassing for me, but it's the truth about your writing. So even if you can't write, you have ideas and you're not sure how to get the ideas out of your head, that's where a good writer or publisher or editor can help you with content.
Mhm.
Shatara, when we were in Atlanta, we talked about the number of pages for a book. You know, a
Mhm.
lot of self-publishers will have very thin books. My first book was 99 pages. I was so proud of that book. But even though that book was written in 2009, it's my bestseller of all of my books, besides The Other Woman magazine. It's my bestseller because I unmasked. I told the truth about what it was like being a wife and a mother. I knew I wasn't alone, and people want to know truth.
Mhm.
Even if you're going to tell your story, for some reason, authors want to find a character to play the role of their life. That
Mhm.
is beyond me. I mean, you have a choice. You do that if you want to, but why would you hide yourself from your story? And I have to put this in, I always have to bring up the church folk. We will quickly say, my life is not my own, but you don't want to share your life. And I'm not saying you have to share your dirty laundry, but if you have a testimony that you're trying to put in print, or if you have
Right.
a life story, we all have issues. Everybody's got some mess. Everybody's got something in their life, some dysfunction in their family, illness, mental illness, been abused, been divorced, whatever it is, had some trauma in your life, but you don't want to share.
Mhm.
Your story may be healing for someone else. Someone may
Right.
be waiting for your story. So what is Sturdy by 30 about? I'm going to show you a book cover again while you tell it. This is Shatara's book, Sturdy by 30. Tell us what it's about, Shatara.
It is a compilation of 30 lessons I've learned over my life. And yes, they are very transparent, very open. And that's just something that I had to deal with when I decided to write 30 by 30. Again, it was written years before it was published. So I had come to terms with it being out there for a while before it was out there. But I just knew that by the time I was pushing 30, and it's for all ages, like, don't be discouraged to read it because it says 30. I mean, I've had women as old as 80 say they wish they had read that book when they were 29, but they were glad that they read
Mhm,
it. So,
mhm,
but it's just a lot of different things. I had experienced so much, to me at such a young age, and I just wanted to tell it. And then I wanted to explain the lesson that I learned from each thing, and then also back it with scripture. It's like for every single lesson, there was a scripture to go along with it, which was pretty awesome. But yep, it's just a compilation of 30 lessons, and it's like I said, it's transparent, it's raw, and it's real.
mhm.
And yeah, that's what I had to
And
do.
and the 30, was that age? Was that
Yes,
the
it
age?
was. The
Oh,
book was written, was completed when I was 29. Hmm.
okay. Um, Something about titles. You want a title, and I like Sturdy by 30 because it makes you wonder what it is.
Hmm.
Uh, Something about title. As you choose the title for your book, You want something that will catch a possible customer, possible reader's eye. You want something that's the title tells you, the subtitle tells you what the book is about.
Mm-hmm.
So not all titles have a subtitle, but if you have a 1-word or 2-word title, you want a subtitle to explain what the book is about. And then when they turn that book over, if they're that intrigued by your title, your title, something that's trending, like my first book was We Snap in Silence, private peace, how to find private peace as a wife, woman, and mother, or something like that. I knew I wasn't the only one that was snapping as a mother. I knew I wasn't the only unhappy wife at the time going through some situations in my marriage. So that's why I chose that title. It just kind of came to me while I was driving one day. So your title may come to you at the beginning of your book. It may come to you at the end of your book, in the middle, but books really do title themselves. Um, that's my mama calling me. Hey, mama. So if you have a good title, they may just pick it up, turn it over, and
Mm-hmm.
read the back cover to find out what the book is about. Now, you mentioned a website for covers. Now, I am completely against generic covers. I do not like those websites that give you covers. But if you don't know a graphic artist, you all who are listening, there are sites out there where you can find a cover. I had one author, she chose a cover, and me being a publisher, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look on Google to see if I can find your cover. You don't want a cover that's been used before, that the pictures have been used before. This is just me. You want something that's original. If it's your first book, why copycat of something that's already out there? Because when people Google
Right.
your book, you don't want them to see your picture or see your title. So you also need to Google your title. If your title is already used, you can Google on Amazon, you can Google, just Google
Right.
book, Goodreads, whatever. Google your title. If your title's already used, you can use a subtitle to differentiate it, to
Right.
separate it from the other books, but you want something original. Um, yes, you need a critical friend. Sandy says you need a critical friend, even if you your title. You want to ask a critical friend about the title of your book. Don't trust your own judgment,
Mm-hmm.
because we all think that we got a bestseller. Everybody thinks they have a bestseller. Oh, I know this is going to be a bestseller. I know. Nobody wants to. We all think that, and it's okay to think that, but you want somebody else to read it. And like Shatara said, if it is a boring book, you're going to have some help, somebody to help you make your good book a great book.
Right.
Let's see. Books title themselves. Yes, they do, Maddie. Books title themselves. You'll be surprised how your book title will come. I have an author now writing a book of poetry, and I think we've been through probably 20 different titles. And that's okay. We still haven't come up with one.
Mm-hmm.
Write down the titles as they come to you. And depending on the content of your book, you may find your title in the content of your book. It doesn't have to be a whole chapter about your book. It could be just something that's mentioned in your book, something catchy that people may want to know about. Shatara, how did you come up with 30 by 30?
30 by 30. Sturdy, of course, is strength. And I began to work like around 2016, which would have been the year I turned 30. The end of 2015, I began to work on myself. Like, I didn't want to continue to be that fragile person I was, which I poured all of that into that book. And I wanted to become stronger. Like, I had a goal in mind to be a better me. Like, I wanted to be me, but just a better, a stronger me with a stronger mind, like a stronger perception of life. So
Mhm.
that is where 30 by 30 came from. And when I mentioned about those covers, and I mentioned Fiverr. Fiverr, if you're not familiar with it, it's a creator space where you can get anything from an illustrated cover to a cover put together by a graphic designer. I've had two covers illustrated, one for a client and one for the book I wrote with my mother. We had those covers actually drawn out because there was no other way to get the image that we wanted. And it's
Okay.
also reasonable, it's also a reasonable cost too to get that done.
Okay. So what was the name of the website again?
Fiverr, Fiverr.
Fiv, V is in Victor, Fiverr.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you guys can go to Fiverr and find out what a little bit more about that, what Shatara is sharing.
Yeah.
You're going to rewind a little bit. Two things before you start writing your book. Those of you who are beginning to write your book or already started, your who and your why. Who are you writing to and why you're writing your book? Now, if you say, I'm writing to all women, or I'm writing to all Christians, or I'm writing to all alcoholics, that is too broad. You want to be very, very specific. You want to break it down. If you were going to a traditional publisher, and that's like the Simon and Schuster or the Harper Collins, they want a 13 to 15 page proposal on everything about your book. And 5 of those pages need to be on who you're writing your book to, who your niche market is. So all women is not going to work. They want to know the status of the women. Are there women who've dealt with your situation? Are they women with what kind of background? You need to break it down. So as you write your book, you know exactly who you're speaking to. Your why. Why are you writing your book? Are you writing to leave a legacy? Are you writing for your friends and family? Are you writing for family history? Are you writing because you want to be an author by trade? You want to make a living as an author? Know your why. Why are you writing the book? Now, I write because I feel like I have something to say. I feel like I got a lot to say, and I know I'm not the only person who feels the way I do. I'm a transparent writer. And I like to take the mask off and just be real. And I think that is how I branded myself. I didn't know I was branding myself, but I'm known as a transparent writer. So if you see my name on a book, you pretty much know what's going to be inside. And that's what you want to do also, is to brand yourself. Think about the future as you write your book, the future of your book. So if you are writing about family history and you're thinking about writing a second book, what exactly about your family history are you writing? Are you writing to share the love that was in the family, the dysfunction that was in the family? And as I say that, I want to go back to Al's 10 Fingers. This is an author that just passed away recently. Now, it was co-authored by Dr. Sandra L. Winborn, who is watching. Hello, Dr. Sandy, and Al Martin. This is a children's book of his story. And I just want to quickly, hold on one second. I want to quickly read something. So Al's 10 Fingers. Al has been playing the piano since he was a little boy. You can find the book on Amazon or wherever online books are sold. When you go to find his book, you're going to find a little write-up on Amazon. So I'm just going to read a few sentences. So this will give you an idea. So it's not just about a little boy who loved to play the piano. You're thinking, okay, so what, he played the piano? No, he was very well known across the nation. And he's from Pensacola, Florida. So if you're in Pensacola, Florida, ever been there, you've heard of Al Martin, whether you like music or not. So she says, schools, churches, and homes with young children 5 to 11 years of age may benefit from reading Al's 10 Fingers. He used them to play music. The book introduces to them and their parents to perhaps consider making playing a musical instrument a part of their children's routine. The benefit may assist them throughout their life. So, this is not just a children's book, this is a book for adults also. So, if you're thinking about writing a children's book, you're writing to not only that child, but you're writing to the parents also, because children don't purchase books. The
Mhm.
parents purchase the books. So you need to know a little something about, again, who you're writing to and why you're writing. Um, Shatara, now
Mhm.
you self-publish your first book, and now you also assist writers, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So, after I published my first book, of course, the flood of questions came in about how you do it, how you do that, and
Right.
I answered questions here and there. But then I immediately, after I finished my book, I worked with my mother on her book, which is a true crime story, true Alabama crime story. And then
Wow.
my mother and I wrote a memoir of my great grandmother and her daughters. And that's the cover that we had drawn. And
Okay.
yeah, so that one came out.
So
That
what
one
was
came,
significant about that second book? You said it was about her
the true
her
crime story or the
yeah,
memoir. The
the
true crime
memoir.
story. Okay, the memoir. Okay, the memoir. Now that's another one that I started writing forever ago. Probably before I wrote 30 by 30, because my family, most families are very interesting. And so there were all these there were all these interesting stories passed down from years and years, all these incidents, all this stuff. And and it all came together so beautifully. I mean, it's a book and it flows. It's kind of like a Color Purple, Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker kind of feel to it, because of course it's set in the 50s. But and so it was a lot. It was a lot of uncovering as well for my mother. But she was willing to tell it. They've always been willing to tell these stories because they're so funny. And then also, it really makes you look at your lineage and look at some of the generational curses that you and your family have dealt with. Things that
Right,
need to be broken off of your family. And
right.
sometimes that comes by way of release. So we have to be mindful while we spend so much time, like you said, covering up things. Maybe we need to uncover some of this stuff to get a release. If, like you said, if our lives are not our own, then what are we doing? So
Exactly.
yeah, that's how
Exactly.
that one came about, and it's just been great just hearing the reviews and the response from that one, because it is, like I said, it's absolutely hilarious. But
Okay, so it's about family. Did
yeah,
you go to the family members that are mentioned in the book to get their permission to share them in the book?
they are all deceased.
Okay.
Everybody mentioned in the book, because again, it was the 50s, and this is my grandmother and her siblings and their mother. So my mom is not even mentioned until the very end. So
Okay.
so
That is
every
interesting.
character in the book is deceased.
Wow. So where did you get
Hmm.
your information from? Just
My
asking
mother,
those.
and like in the book, the true crime story is set in the 70s. So it's my mother as an adult, but a very young adult. So some
Uh-huh.
of the information for that one I checked with my cousin for accuracy, and he is credited for that one. But again, everybody in that one is deceased as well for the most part. And for my the memoir, it my mother, just my mother. And then also, like, some of the stories I've heard my grandmother tell, because we grew up. And that was the funny part, with just my siblings reading the book and them being like, that happened. And I'm like, y'all, we grew up in the same house. I heard it just like I heard it. Like, come on now. Y'all got amnesia? We all heard these. We all knew this stuff. Like, come
Right.
on now. So, with them, it was like, I don't remember, but I'm like, yes, you do. And I'm the youngest. I am the youngest, and I remember stuff. So just hearing those stories passed down for years, and my mother, telling them to me, and it's even more to that story in particular. So we're still working on that one, but because it's not finished. But
Wow.
but yeah,
Well, that
that's
was
another
kind of
thing about your
easy.
book.
Go ahead.
That's another thing about books too. Sometimes you have to stop and do a part two instead of trying to pile it all and
All
make
into one.
these really thick books that,
Yeah.
again, they get to a certain point. It's like, okay, now, give a little break.
And for you all who are listening, a memoir doesn't have to be your whole life. It's a difference in an
No.
autobiography and a memoir. Autobiography is your book chronologically shared from birth to the present, where you can have more than one memoir. A story about your life can be a significant part of your life. My son just told me the other day, he says, you always talk about your divorce. Every time you do a live, you talk about your divorce. Well, that was a very significant part of my life. I haven't written that book yet, but that would be one part of my book. Another one could be me just being me who I am and coming into my own, the other woman that I'm always talking about. That could be another memoir. So a memoir is not just one. You have so many parts of your life, so many layers of your life that you
Mhm.
can share. So just because you write a memoir doesn't mean that's where you stop. So as
Right.
Shatara said, break it up, different defining moments of your life. We all have different defining moments. I mean, we all have different seasons and stages of our life. So break it up. But if you're writing your life story, that's great because it can be shared in short stories. There are short stories is what sells now. What is it? Chicken Soup for the Soul. Those authors were rejected
Mhm.
by almost 150 publishers before they got picked up. So just because you write a book
Wow.
and you want to find a publisher, don't get discouraged. You got to have excuse the expression, you got to have a badass book to get picked up by these top publishers. And that's why so many people self-publish now, because it is difficult. And you can't just knock on the door of a publisher. You have to have a literary agent first. The literary agent is the one who will knock on those doors for you. They've already built relationships with publishers, so they know what you need to get in the door. But you got to have a good book. And if you're trying to get with a top publisher, your book has to be at least 60,000 words. 60,000 words before they even look at your book. So break out the pen and paper and start self-publishing, unless you're going to break out that pen and paper and write your butt off and get you a ghostwriter, or you may be just a good writer. So if you're an excellent writer, you can get picked up by a publisher, but it's a lot of work. Like I said, you have to have a proposal. You got to have a literary agent. It's just a lot of work into it, but it's worth it. I mean, what can they do? They say no. I have a literary agent, and the first book that I was a ghostwriter for, it got rejected so many times, and it was a true crime. It was a nonfiction, rejection after rejection. You got to have some thick skin to be an author. You got to have thick skin, because everyone's not going to like what you read. And if you try to find a publisher, you have to be open-minded enough to listen to how to make your book a little better. Okay, I can't give you all the information. I'm going to let you know some of the services that Candy Publishing offers. Now, you mentioned $4,000. That blew me away. Now, if I charge $4,000 to publish books, I would be in the poorhouse. I would be on the side of the street holding up the sign saying, we'll work for food or something. $4,000 is a lot of money. I didn't even charge half of that. I think it was $1,600 that I was charging to publish a book. Now, if it was a ghostwriting job, if you're going to just want me to compile all your information and write the book for you, it started at $4,500, depending on if my name was on the cover or not. And that's a whole nother workshop, a whole other workshop. However, I'm now offering coaching just to help you self-publish. So it is under $1,000. Now, you may find a publisher who will publish your book for $200-300. You're going to get what you pay for. You are going to get what you pay for. And even the workshops, there are workshops, writing workshops that can cost a few $100s. But if you can write, you can get an editor or someone like Shatar or myself who's had experience with writing to help your book be the best that it can be. So as I said in the beginning, if you guys just checking in, I'm trying to get away from the publishing because I have books that I want to write. I've got about 3 or 4 books in me that I got to get on paper. I got to get published, and I can't keep putting them off. Like Shatar, you said, yours right here, sitting for years waiting to get published.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. As I always say, I will not die with these books in me. So
Right.
I'm taking a different direction, and I'm going to show you and guide you and coach you through the process of self-publishing your book or help you find a publisher. But we have editors, we have cover artists, we have whatever you need at Candy Publishing. And Shatara, tell some of the services that you offer.
Well, yeah, mine was kind of birthed over COVID.
Okay, that's good.
I'm a teacher by trade, but of course with COVID, and then leading into the summer, some kind of way, I don't even know. Okay, I hosted another book publishing class. That's what happened. And then after I did that class, I took a coaching session on how to like build your business and stuff. And I kind of worked on it. So I've helped people publish their books. I've taught tutorials as well on how to publish, and I coach people to get their book written. I said I wasn't taking any new people until January 1st, starting at that point. The people I have now is who I have, and I'm working with them, trying to get them done.
Right.
And then January 1st, I'll start accepting new clients and just really trying to get comfortable being in business. I mean, I've worked for so long now. It's kind of different, but I enjoy it because I sat on my book for so long. I like seeing the finished product for other people just as much as I like seeing
I do
mine.
Also. There is nothing
so
like getting that book in your hand.
So many people like, I'm gonna write a book and I'm gonna write it. You know? So sometimes they just need that push, you know.
Yeah. There is someone that I know, they've been talking about writing a book since I've known them.
Oh,
and I'm talking, that's over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
I know, but you know what? You can't beg people to write the book. They're going to have to find out on their own. And a lot of times it takes us bringing our book to fruition to get somebody else off of their butt to write their book. You know, the Other Woman magazine, that is something that I kind of incorporated into Candy Publishing because there's so much that I had to share. But the magazine is not just my writing. The magazine is men and women who contribute to the Other Woman magazine. And I have to plug my own magazine while we're talking about advertising. The next issue will be released at the end of the month. I know I am pushing it close, but it's only me. So when you say you're trying to get used to the business world, oh my God, it's
something.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So here we are trying to hold a business down. And you said your publishing company was birthed out of COVID.
Out of COVID, like literally, just like people just started after, like I said, after that second book publishing class, I think. Yeah. And I did it on Zoom and it was just different. I don't know. It was just like after that, I mean, COVID freed a lot of us up, you know, time to advertise. Like that's the other thing too now. Advertising is a whole other job. Like,
yeah. Oh gosh. You know what? I'm so happy. We're going to say that and we're going to get off. Advertising, whole marketing. If you are my friend on Facebook, you probably see the Other Woman magazine. Somebody told me, all you post is business stuff. That's all I have time to post.
Exactly.
And it takes a team to market a book. You got to keep it out there, because if you make one post about your book, 5 of your friends may have seen it, but it takes likes and shares for it to stay in the timeline. So if you just post it one time, there's a whole bunch of people who did not see that post. And there are certain times of the day that are the right time to post on Facebook. Instagram has certain times of the day. What's the other one? LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm on all of those. And that is exhausting. So they wonder why I don't have time to do this. And I'm working. I'm trying to advertise. I have things to do. It takes a to market. And please do not underestimate the power of social media. I have authors who do not have a Facebook page, or they're not on social media, and I don't know how to help you besides doing a press release for your local newspaper and to let, I don't know. It's just more difficult if you're not on social media, because that's what everyone is. Yeah.
It really, I know an author that's not on social media, and I was told he was like putting his books in one of those local stores in like a really country town. It wasn't working out that well. So yeah, it's yeah.
And you know what? You have to be teachable.
You're gonna have to become a phone person.
Oh Lord. See, that might be why I do it, because I'm not a phone person at all. Even having a business, it's like, okay, can you email me? You got to become a phone person.
You do. And I hear a lot of people like, I'm not a phone person. I'm like, okay.
You're going to be one.
You got to be
or
one.
You're not going to sell any books, or you're not going to have a business. You have to put your face out there. You have to put yourself out there. So introverts or shy people, it's difficult being an author unless you're going to have somebody do all that work for you. But they want to see the person who wrote the book, not somebody else. So remember that as you write. Those of you who tuned in tonight, hello, Maddie. Maddie says she is not going to let that book die in her. That's good. Sandra, Dr. Winborn, thank you for tuning in, and you continue working on Mr. Martin's second book. Sandra Winborn is also she'll probably kill me for saying this, a ghostwriter. That woman can write. She can write anything. And Mr. Martin was just blessed to have her in his life and at least get the children's book out and all the information she needed before he passed away. You guys, I cannot express it enough to just write. Just write. If you want to know how to start, just write. I say that it sounds so simple. Don't think about writing a book. Just write. Whatever comes to your mind, just write it down. Get you a tablet, a journal, whatever, and just start writing whatever comes to mind. And don't say, well, this doesn't need to go in a book or that doesn't need to go in the book. Just write it. And then you can figure that out after you get the words out of your head and on paper. And if you need help getting the words out of your head and on paper, you need help with content. That's what Shatara does. That's what I do. Shatara's not taking any more clients until January 1st. I said that too. Because I'm like the end of the month. I have 4-5 books that I'm trying to get out for other authors, and hopefully after that is done, I can start writing some of my own, but I'm not going to turn you all away. I will coach you to self-publish. I will coach you. So for under $1,000, not even close, you can get your book and get it written and published in the new year. So set a goal for yourself. If you don't have a goal, you're going to be like Shatara was with that book sitting in your outbox or sitting in your files for years before you do anything with it. So if 2019 didn't teach us anything, 2019 should have told us, you don't know what's ahead in the future. If you want to do something, you better do it now. None of us thought that we would be here, you know, in the pandemic. This is the perfect time to write. It's the perfect time to
Mhm.
write. Okay, I'm going to hush. Closing remarks from you, Shatara.
This has been amazing, and I really hope that we were able to reach those potential authors out there, those future authors. I did want to say one other thing about you were saying about just write. I hear a lot of people say sometimes, well, I don't know, where do I start? Where do I start? Just as sure as you can tell somebody your story, you can
Oh,
write.
if you
Like
can
I've had
talk,
people sit
you
down and
can
tell me their
write.
story, and they're just like, but I don't know how to write it. Like as soon as it came out of your mouth, you just write it. Just start, you know. You can always
Yes.
hire a ghostwriter, but if you want to write it yourself, just as sure as you can speak it, you can write it. So hey,
I say that too. If you can talk, you can write.
yeah,
Don't worry about spelling and grammar.
right. Don't worry about any of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, just get it.
Editing, editing and creating use different sides of the brain. So if you try
Yeah,
to edit while you create, it's just not going to work. So
right.
don't worry about the periods and the spelling. Some of the best writers cannot spell because they have an editor. That's what editors are for.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you guys have any questions, you can contact Shatar. Shatar, I don't have your information. I just have your name.
Oh,
But they can find you on
yeah, you can
Facebook.
find me on Facebook. I'll come in on. I think I come in on the post one time. Yeah, just add me on Facebook, and then I'll invite you to all my other pages and stuff.
Okay, and that is her name shown on the screen there,
Yeah.
Shatara S. Clark. So you can find her on Facebook there, and Candy Publishing's number and website are at the bottom. And yes, I'm not a phone person, but you can call me if you have questions or you like to be a 2021 author. Let's
That's it.
do it. You know, be true to thine own self, be true, share your story, write your story, share your truth, and just make it happen. And again, do not die with a book in you. Okay, we got one more comment I'm going to show. um, Sandra Winborn, Dr. Sandy Winborn.
Oh,
What did she
thank
say?
you.
Editing and
That's
creating come from different, parts of the
yeah.
brain. Yep, that's true. That's true. Okay. All righty, you guys. Thank you. I'm going to end it with a little clip from the upcoming authors by Candy Publishing. Um, and again, don't die with a book in you. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for tuning in tonight,
Thank
and contact either one of us if you have any questions. Thank you, Shatara.
Yes, Sam. Thank you. Thank you for having me.